I traveled any faster, babe, Lord knows where I might have been.
What do you want? That's what it means. Yeah, as simple as that. Yeah. After 8 years, we had to make a record, and we were grumpy about it. All right, we'll make a record. Now what?
You know, when you have to make people aware of something, you could do it simple. Just make a picture of people's faces, call it the 19,000, whatever you want to call it. But if you make a symbol and something slightly ambiguous, people ask, well, what's that about? And immediately you have interest, like you have interest. So it works, you know? And that symbol will represent the next tour for the next 1 or 2 years. And what seems strange now in 1 year's time will seem very normal. Okay, thank you.
Right from those early days, I put my faith in the axle, not the wheels. Like old Zeno's toilets.
We kind of drifted on, and we were having such a great time on the road, we never really thought about making another record. We were getting poked in the eye every now and again, you know, come on, get in the studio, but we talked about it over a beer from time to time. Yeah, maybe next year we'll get to it. And then Bob came to see us in Canada in February 2012, and we started talking about the elements of making another record. And a few things came to light which were really interesting. We weren't particularly bothered about making a new record at the time, and we were reminded about the way we used to make records, which was just whether we follow the music. And In Rock and Fireball and Machine Head each had only 7 songs on each one. Some of them were quite long. And then we reminded ourselves that this is basically an instrumental band with a singer, but it's mostly an instrumental band, and that what we used to do was make music, not songs. It was very simple. And we maybe drifted into that same old way that everyone does, of a formulaic approach to music, where intro, a couple of verses, chorus, guitar solo, keyboard solo, repeat, end, next. And so I think the idea of going back to that freshness of approach, combined with the wonderful empathy that had built up in the band amongst the players over this constant touring, which is a challenge every night with the improvisation and something always to keep it fresh. We all perked up a little bit and went, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. So, and the idea of Bob being a producer, for most reasons, but not to necessarily look at it that way. We knew he was going to deliver a good sound, but we had no idea how good it was going to be until we got to Nashville. And I was nearly in tears the first morning when I heard the playback, because it was amazing the way he managed to capture the sound of the guitar and the Hammond organ, which was always a signature of Deep Purple. But in my opinion, we had never ever achieved exactly what we should have done in the past. So this stood head and shoulders above everything sound-wise. And the fact that he was there kind of conducting our passion, our professionalism and our creativity, and he had our respect because of his history as a musician too. He's a great musician, and he produced everything from classical music to jazz to, the pop stuff and the rock stuff, Alice Cooper and Queen and all that. So all of those elements, plus the fact that he acted as a catalyst, I think spiritually for us, was quite something. And when I took it home and listened to the sound, I was absolutely stunned. I can't say too much about the music because that's too subjective, but I can be objective about the sound, and I think it's fantastic.
With Achilles snapping at my heels, don't worry, there's no hurry.
I was on tour with an organisation called Rock Meets Classic last January 2012, and Steve Lukather was on the show as well. And at the end of the evening, all the other singers and musicians came on the stage and we did Smoke on the Water as an encore. And Steve was supposed to do the intro to this. And but at this point, the seated audience, just as the encore started, they all rushed to stood up and came to the front of the stage. And one of them, man, I don't know how to describe this, but she was, you know what a Michelin man is? Michelin man? Yeah? Well, this was a Michelin woman. And she was wearing the most outrageous, she was leather. And
this was not Elle Macpherson, was it?
There was a lot of skin showing. And she had big hair and huge lips with lipstick. And her eyes were blazing. And she wanted to devour us. She wanted to eat us, I'm sure. And she came, and I went, whoa. And I leant down and said into Steve's ear as he was about to start the intro to Smoke on the Water, and I said, "You saw her first, man." That proved it. So it became happy virtually, along with lots of other French expressions. They're commonly used in England. People may not know that, but we do use a lot of French expressions.
We steal a lot of your language.
So that story developed into us. It was a trigger. It was the inspiration for a story about two guys going out on the town at night. And as I know from experience, the people look a lot nicer after 2 or 3 drinks. And so it was combining a few experiences on the road together with that as a trigger, which is the song Upgrade.
Here we are with all the time in the world. I could have been a high-flying dealer.
Temperature was 110 degrees most days, Fahrenheit, and so
40 centigrade.
yeah, it's known as Music City, and from the very beginning, where we were in this big complex, it was like a barn, like a big factory warehouse, but it was sectioned off, and there were different sized rehearsal rooms, and it was fantastic. You walk in, the doors are opening and closing, musicians coming and going, and you could hear people auditioning, writing songs, rehearsing, all different kinds of music. And so it was inspiration, and the whole town is full of music. There are clubs and bars and recording studios and publishing houses, and everyone there is pretty much involved in music one way or the other. Bob Ezrin, our producer, lives in Nashville. The engineers we were using were trained by Bob Ezrin, and the studios were absolutely perfect for acoustics and production environment. And so we just got on with the work, and it made everything very easy for us. I think one of the first things we did was to go and see the Nashville Symphony with Bob, and he's a patron of that. And yeah, it's not just about country music anymore, it's really the whole package.
Yeah, New York and Los Angeles are no longer in that industry. Everybody who does anything in North America now goes to Nashville, because they have the best musicians, they have the best facilities, the best studios for sure. And people like Bob live there. They're not there unless it's the right place to be. We had such a good time there. If we do decide to do another album in a couple of years' time, that's where we're going. That's just great.
Well, I'm going to Thailand.
He's going to Thailand. That's not recording, that's something else.
No, there's a nice studio there. They got elephants.
But I have no desire for speed. I could have been a wide receiver, but I've got everything I need.
Yeah, he knows them all by name, everyone.
They're all my relatives. But it's an amazing change in the way things are done. When we were kids, we learned about the music business and how it was done and had been done for many, many years, the process you went through, not only with promotion, but also the physical aspect of selling. So you learn about promotion, marketing, and production, and they've all changed. Everything's changed. You still make the music, and you still talk to people, and you still have your picture taken, but the medium has changed altogether, and the immediacy of contact now is great. It's got its good side and it's got its bad side, that immediacy. On the downside, we couldn't play any of the new material in Australia when we did a tour of Singapore and New Zealand a couple of months ago, which we were dying to play new material. but we couldn't because within 5 minutes we'd be up on YouTube, and a duff, bad version of it would be up there. So we had to hold back and all that sort of thing. But it's immense. It's absolutely. In the old days it used to be rumours, but now it's actually real contact from people, and you can feed information on a more personal level than just the old handout. I think it's great.
In a moment of drunkenness, I signed up to Facebook. It was about 2 in the morning, and I should have been locked away. And that Facebook seems like a good idea. So Ian Paice, name in the open. The next morning it was impossible. There's like 3,000 requests to talk to people, and by the end of the day it was like 25,000 hits. So what can you do? You have to get off Facebook. It's impossible. Or you have to tell somebody that it's a silly name so they don't know. So I got a friend of mine to get me out of there. It was very frightening.
And so I watch the world go racing by, tearing up the street. I lay back in the long grass, take it easy, rest my feet.
The song had the name Vincent Paice as a working title. Somebody came up with it because it sounded spooky. It sounded like it could be the soundtrack for a horror movie. And we all know Vincent Paice. We've all worked with him in the old days. And Bob's worked with him, produced him. I've worked with Vincent Paice. Roger Glover's worked with him. And so we know his voice, we know his character, and we know his personality, which is completely different to the image you see on the screen, by the way. So anyway, with this name Vincent Paice, Roger came down to my little studio in Portugal, and between beers and a swim, and we would sit down and do a little bit of work. I got the paper out and said, well, imagine if you're making a horror movie with Vincent Paice in it, back in the 60s, and you're the director, what would be the ingredients you would want in the movie? So we started writing it. Well, you want creaking doors, rattling chains, you want vampires, howling dogs, you want naked women, you want thunder and lightning, zombies, and hang on a second, that's it, we got the song written. That's it, that's all you need. So the song is basically a list of ingredients that the directors would want in a movie. And the idea that, when we were kids, you love to be scared by things, even when you're a little kid. You don't like to be frightened, but in a way you do. And so that's the story behind it.
All I know is if the journalists like the record, they're incredibly intelligent, and if they don't, they're absolute idiots. That's all I know.
Well, I was doing an interview earlier today, and the guy was asking me a similar kind of question about the difference between how it was back in 1969 and 70. And I pointed out to him that all the journalists in '69 were asking exactly the same questions that they're asking now. So maybe they should start thinking of something original to say. Generally speaking, we get on very well with the critics, because I think they understand that we're not motivated by anything other than just trying to do our best and have fun. There's not really a driving force of commercialism or anything like that. We've never really been very good at this commercial side of things. We've never had a publicist. We still don't have a publicist. We have great help on special projects and when we're doing tours from internal things, but we don't hire companies to do that for us, or have outside organisations. And the motivation, as I explained earlier, for making records is when we're right, and it's taken 8 years, we didn't feel the need to, I can tell you honestly, we didn't even think about critics when we were making this record. It's the last thing in the world. Apart from the publicist, another thing we don't have is any clothes sense. Apart from that, and another thing we don't have is any sense of planning. Nobody comes into the studio with an idea or a game plan. It starts from scratch. We start at noon every day and finish at 6 o'clock, and we play it, we jam. every day. Maybe on the second or third day, a little idea will come out, and we put it to one side and develop that into a song. That's the music first, always the song, the words and the tune come afterwards, which is unconventional, to say the least. But no, I think to a certain clique of journalism, if you like to call it that, a certain clique will always take against what they see as something that's not tragically hip or doesn't fit the mode. The thing about fashion is, by definition, if you're fashionable today, you're going to be unfashionable tomorrow. So it's much better to stick to what you believe in and do it with conviction and expression. And you may or may not go in and out of fashion. If you coincide with fashion, that's fine. If not, you're happy.
We are with all the time in the world.
Well, you can blend the two together. You know, we understand that those incredibly popular, successful songs that have been around for a long time must be played. If you don't play them, the audience are very unhappy, and if you go to a concert, you want to go home happy. But there's still room to bring in new music and obscure music. The point is, you can't put all the new stuff together. It's unfair on the new songs, and it's quite demanding for the audience. So if you have 3-4 new songs, you surround them by their more well-known brothers and sisters, and that way they get a fair chance to be listened to, with the audience still being in that happy place they want to be in a concert. So that's what we do. We try and blend the old with the new, with the obscure, but keep it moving.
Nowhere would we go on stage and play the whole new album before people even knew what it was. That would be very, very unkind to the new songs. They need to be surrounded by the big brothers. You know?
Yeah, we've been constructing concerts and show programs for a long time. This question has come up a lot, and we ask ourselves the same question. And you develop techniques, not specifically for any particular song or project, but there is a rule. Primarily, you want the show to have balance, so you've got to have a flow throughout, and then you want to break it into sections. And sometimes you have something which is more demanding for the audience and more involving in their cerebral sense, and sometimes you want to let it go and have a more physical period, which towards the end you kind of release it and everything sort of builds to a climax. But you need a couple of mini climaxes throughout the show as well, peaks and troughs. In the late 60s and early 70s, I used to actually invite the audience to sit down for a few, on the floor for 2 or 3, while we did some blues jams, maybe for 15 or 20 minutes. And then say, okay, we can do some rock and roll now, do you want to stand up? And normally they would. Not in Amsterdam, of course, they stayed fast asleep on the floor, but generally speaking, that was the way it went. And I think you remember those, it's technique really, of building and constructing a show. You must bring in the new stuff, you have to do it, but it also is incumbent upon that material to survive amongst the older stuff and the more familiar. There are 4 elements to a deep level show: the old and the new, the obscure and the improvisation. And those things, it's an old formula, it's worked for us for a long time. But every album presents its own difficulties. And if you've got a new album at a time when you're trying to introduce it into a show that's been going for some time without change, it may be that the old material is actually causing a problem for the new material, so you may have to change everything. Each new record presents a new challenge, but it generally works out. We should probably introduce 4 or 5 songs from this record at one go, and then rotate them, and see, probably after a month or 2, which ones are natural candidates to stay in the concert, and which ones are best left on the record as a studio song, not as a live song. Some of them don't work, and you never really know. I mean, they might sound great in the rehearsal room, but when you feel the electricity with the audience, they just may not get it, or it might be in the wrong place, whatever. So you've got to check them all out and see how it goes.
That's a good question. Thank you.
I think it may have been down in Marseille or somewhere in the south. We did a few shows, and then suddenly my website, I got hundreds and hundreds of letters, and we were getting contact with kids, 16, 17-year-old kids, who were writing letters, doing projects in school, and they were asking incredible and telling us things they knew about Deep Purple, and it was overwhelming. And these things ripple. I think it's called viral in the modern world, but the ripple spread, and all of a sudden there was a huge demand for us to come back into France. And so, naturally enough, when we get invited, we never turn down a nice invitation. And we don't want to outstay our welcome, but I hope it lasts a long time, because we love it here.
You know, for many years, France was a very small market for us. The French tour would be 3-4 concerts. Paris, somewhere in the north, somewhere in the west, somewhere in the south. And we tried really hard here to make it work for us, but it was just maybe the wrong time, the wrong music at the wrong time. But we didn't change. You guys changed, and we're very happy you did. You found something in what we're doing which you like. So it's great fun to come to this very big country of yours and be able to play in all these great towns. Because you're so lucky, you have so many great venues as well. Yeah. Every little town's got a Zenith, you know, so it's not too big. It can stay intimate, but it's big enough to make an event for the night. And it's just great fun to be here and to cover the country properly, you know. We really do enjoy it, and we're thankful that you found that you like us. It's really good.
Yeah, I must reinforce what Ian said. You really have got in France the best, consistently good provincial venues of anywhere in the world. It's unbelievable. Every single town, even the small towns, have got a 3,000-4,000 seater, a multi-purpose complex, sports, concerts, whatever. And we don't have anything like that in England, nothing like it at all. In Germany, at the top end, at the big end, they have good venues, but they're not so well served by the small provincial towns. It's normally old town halls and things like that. But it's quite amazing. Part of the infrastructure, the social structure here, has provided these fantastic venues. So it makes it a joy to tour here.